I would like to announce our next speaker, Mr. Zeeshan Ashfaq, who is the managing director now of SOWITEC, so representing a German developer, which has now started business activities in Pakistan, which I think is an important perspective. And I'm very happy to have you here, Zeeshan. But you have done a lot of work for WWA the last couple of years. So you've been the driver of our market research, of our policy analysis, with which we were able to give advice to the government of Pakistan, including NEPRA. Zeeshan, a great pleasure to have you here. And if you'd like to take over now and present your view on the market.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you for having me. As you have just mentioned, my name is Zeeshan Ashfaq, and now I'm working with the SOWITEC, which is one of the largest renewable energy developers worldwide. So, Honorable Chairman NEPRA has, already provided a, detailed overview of the Pakistani wind market. I would be rather brief in my discussion today. So I'll be, talking about, SOWITEC, that what we are and what we do. And then, instead of, discussing the status of wind power market, I'll be talking briefly about the distinct characteristics of the Pakistani wind market. And then, at the end, we will discuss that, how the market would evolve in the future and what needs to be done from the government side to foster wind power deployment in the country. So SOWITEC is, as I've already said, one of the largest developers in the field of renewable energy. We have been successful in the market for 5 years now, and over 2,700 megawatts of wind and solar, projects developed by SOWITEC are operational in around 8 countries worldwide. And, we have complete know-how of the entire value chain of the project development. And, last year, SOWITEC was, a 25% share of SOWITEC was acquired by Vestas, which is the leading OEM worldwide. And we really value that partnership. And, currently we have a very, strong presence in Latin American markets. We have our subsidiaries in around 14 countries and joint ventures in another couple of countries. And, now we have expanded to some Asian markets, like, for example, Vietnam, Thailand, and now also, we are looking keenly at the Pakistani wind market, which we believe holds quite a promising future. And, we have a very long-standing business relation with, some of the top tier, investors. These include strategic investors as well as some leading European utilities. And we also have a quite strong pipeline of around 30 gigawatt, which is under development and is at various stages of development. So now let's talk about the Pakistani wind market. So the current installed capacity is around 1,240 megawatt, which is not that much. The first renewable energy policy was announced back in 2006, and it took Pakistan 6 to 7 years to install its first wind energy project back in 2003. But although the market is quite small, it has some distinct features which we don't find in other similar size markets in different parts of the world. The first one is that it was the domestic investors who spearheaded the market development in Pakistan. And when the market started taking shape, foreign investors joined in, and later when the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor under the framework of Belt and Road Initiative was announced, Chinese investors, they also joined the ride and, started taking keen interest in the market. And another distinct, feature is the presence of, Western and Chinese OEMs. I mean, in such kind of such sized markets, we don't find so much diverse OEMs. We in Pakistan have around 7 OEMs who have deployed their technology in the country, and in a 1,240 megawatt installed capacity, it's quite remarkable, and it underlines Pakistan's ability to benefit from the competition among different technology providers. The third distinct feature of this small size market is that local and international capital markets have demonstrated confidence in the Pakistani wind market by deploying around 305 billion US dollars in debt and equity investments. And the financiers include development finance institutions, conventional and Islamic banks, as well as equity providers. And moving towards the future, we see more and more financiers joining in. And then we also see local and international manufacturers joining joint ventures. A couple of tower manufacturing facilities were set up in Pakistan, and we see that such kind of facilities will grow in the future, keeping in view the targets that have been set by the government. And then there has been a local skilled workforce that has been part and parcel of this market development. And another remarkable feature of the market is the lowest tariff under cost plus regime. The projects that are under construction, the tariff for them, the average tariff for those projects is 4.5 US cents per kilowatt hour, which is quite remarkable. And the recently announced tariffs for cost plus projects is between 3.2 to 3.5 US cents. It is yet to be seen that if these projects will be developed or not, but under a stable regime of cost plus, these numbers are quite remarkable, and we cannot ignore them. But although there have been some very good fundamentals available in the market has not grown that rapidly. And we have only been able to add around 1,240 megawatts of wind power and around 610 megawatts of capacities under construction. Moving forward, we will see some of these distinct features being changed, or some may even get strengthened, as Chairman NEPRA has mentioned in his presentation, that the government has set a target. And when we talk about wind energy, it is roughly around 8 to 8.5 gigawatt of installed capacity by the year 2030, which seems to be an ambitious target, keeping in view the Pakistani wind market, which at the moment is quite small, but still very dynamic. And we will also be seeing more participation and new players joining in the future. We will see bigger volumes, and we'll see foreign companies joining in, and we are one of the prime examples of that, because we see this market growing rapidly in the future, and that's why we have entered the market. And then the next thing is future induction will be mainly through auctions, but we have to be very careful with that, as Shafan has just said, that they have not always resulted in decreasing costs of wind power in some parts of the world. So therefore, if we plan to go ahead with that model, we need to, keep in mind the local requirements and, the understanding of a local market, so that a good model can be developed for that. And we also see industry expanding, but all this would basically depend upon a clear roadmap. The numbers are there, as indicated in the indicative generation capacity expansion plan that has been prepared by the National Transmission and Dispatch Company and submitted to NEPRA, but the plan has not been approved yet. So we see when it is going to be approved, and then we will see how it gets implemented. Because numbers on the screen look quite good, but implementation must be ensured, because a project development process of wind power projects takes time, because from conception to the commercial operations you need at least 3 years. And if we are to induct 1500 megawatts of wind energy in 2023 to 2025, I mean I'm talking additions every year from 2023. The planning must start now, and the government must immediately engage the private sector immediately, because the federal government, which although is financially constrained, but it is fiscally not that much challenged compared to the provincial governments, but it often relies on donor agencies and development partners to conduct various studies for various technical studies for the induction of renewable energy. And since the government is already fiscally and financially constrained, it would be difficult to develop so many sites in different parts of the world by itself. Therefore, there is a strong need to engage the private sector as soon as possible, so that met masts can be installed, geotechnical and topographic studies can be conducted, different permits can be obtained, and so on and so forth. Government alone cannot do it in Pakistan. And another thing that must be taken care of is that there, as the chairman NEPRA has already mentioned in his presentation, there is a need to basically foster a kind of cooperation between the regional and subnational governments, because it has cost us dearly in the past, and lack of coordination among the federal as well as and the provincial governments have resulted towards a slow growth of wind energy market in Pakistan. And at the end, I would like to say that we need to think beyond cost and talk about the value that renewable energy or wind energy projects can create in Pakistan. Wind energy is together with solar is already the most cost competitive energy source, but now we need to think beyond that and look at the value that is created by deploying renewables. This value can be job creation, socio-economic, and environmental benefits, and so on. So it is imperative for us to think beyond only the prism of cost while deploying renewables and wind energy projects. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Zeeshan. As usual, a very comprehensive information about a presentation about how you see the the current market and the challenges and the opportunities. I think it's very important also that you highlighted at the end all these co-benefits of renewable energy in addition to the low price that renewables and wind power in particular are offering. Do we have any questions for our speaker? Well, let me in the meantime mention, I think this is also a good point of time now, that we are also working in Pakistan sometimes with the GIZ, the German Development Corporation, and they're currently conducting as part of the Pakistan-German Renewable Energy Forum, a survey amongst mainly German companies with a potential interest in the market in Pakistan. They would like to find out what are the needs and how you see the challenges. So they requested me to share the link to this survey here, which I've just done. So if we have any German companies here amongst our in the audience, this is the link which you may then fill out, and that will help for GIZ. They also are supporting. We've also done some projects together with them, the development in the market in Pakistan. So I see one more. Sohaib, Zeeshan, would you like to comment on the question that, or the comment that Sohaib Manja has written here? Correct me if I'm wrong, but as per NEPRA figures, Pakistan has a surplus of energy now. That's why they have given incentives to local industries without peak hour requirement. However, the usage of coal is the government of Pakistan's decision, with which I respect, and I hope they know much better than us about the local coal industry and its fair share by 2030 in terms of sustainability. Delighted to see what we are progressing, and so is Pakistan. There's more a statement, but Zeeshan, you'd like to agree, disagree?
I mean, you know, I somehow agree with the chairman NEPRA that, you know, we have a kind of surplus capacity, but at the same time, you know, the chairman was mentioning that, you know, we have among the lowest per capita energy consumption in the world. So, you know, these two basically, you know, points contradict each other, and, you know, although, you know, if we see the government saying that we are in a kind of surplus capacity, we see, you know, load shedding taking place in many parts of the world, many parts of Pakistan. I think, you know, the problem is not the capacity as such, but, you know, the real problem is the system constraints, which does not allow the generated capacity to be transmitted and distributed, you know, which does not allow the generated capacity to be transmitted and distributed to different parts of the country. So,
thank you. And just one kind, maybe give a brief comment on that as well. As far as I'm aware, there's also a substantial share of the population which does not yet have access to the grid, which obviously is not yet covered by the existing capacities. Would you like to say 2-3 sentences on that?
Exactly, around, you know, 27% of the total population of Pakistan does not have access to electricity at the moment, and, you know, in my opinion, renewable energy you know, technologies provide an optimal solution to reach out to those people that are not connected to the national grid, because extending the grid to those areas will be much more expensive than, you know, just having, you know, island or, you know, distributed projects in, you know, those parts of Pakistan. I see a very huge potential, you know, in that section as well.
Thank you so much, Zeeshan.